I showed up 3 minutes early, and still I felt late. The lobby of the Rosewood Court Hotel smelled faintly of expensive soap and hollow promises. Crystal chandeliers threw sterile light across marble floors. Conversations floated through the air like polite ghosts, murmuring about golf tournaments and trust funds. Somewhere deep down, I knew tonight would be another exercise in being invisible. But a stubborn piece of me still clung to hope, the same reckless hope that had survived years of cold shoulders and polite dismissals. I adjusted the cuffs of my shirt and made my way to the dining room. There they were, my family. My mother, perched upright like a queen, judging a competition she already regretted attending. My father, stoic, the kind of man who thought emotions belonged buried next to expired tax forms. And of course, Liam, the golden boy, the miracle child, the sun around which our parents' universe so eagerly revolved. When Liam spotted me, he flashed a politician's smile, all teeth and no sincerity. "Look who made it," he said, as if I'd clawed my way here from a gutter. I gave a small nod and took my seat, far enough from the centre that I could have been mistaken for hotel staff. They were already mid-conversation about Liam's latest accomplishment, a keynote speaker at some leadership summit. My father beamed with pride. My mother dabbed the corner of her eye with a linen napkin, overcome by what I could only assume was profound maternal joy. I sat there, hands folded neatly, a spectator at a play where my lines had long been cut. Still, tonight wasn't about me. It was about them. It was about showing them that despite everything, I could still be gracious. The envelope in my pocket felt heavier with every passing second. A silent offering. One last attempt to be seen. Dinner unfolded the way it always did. Choreographed chaos wrapped in silk napkins and forced laughter. Liam dominated the conversation, naturally. He spoke about corporate deals and upcoming podcasts, about leadership panels and how the world needed visionaries like him. Our parents hung on every word like disciples waiting for a sermon. When I mentioned, almost apologetically, that I'd landed a new freelance project, my mother offered a tight smile, the kind you reserve for a stranger's ugly baby. "That's nice, dear," she said. "Is there health insurance with that?" I swallowed my frustration and reached for my water glass. It wasn't worth it. It was never worth it. I toyed with the idea of slipping the envelope across the table then and there. No speech, no drama, just a quiet surrender. But something in me hesitated. Something that knew, even before it happened, how this night would carve itself into memory. The clinking of cutlery died down. Liam stood up, wine glass raised, the spotlight finding him as if on cue. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began, his voice smooth as velvet. "To celebrate two incredible people, our parents, for raising me to become the man I am today." Polite chuckles floated around the room. I clapped too, mechanical, out of habit. And Liam turned, flashing that signature, crowd-winning smile for raising the most amazing only child anyone could ask for. For a beat, I waited. Waited for the laughter, for the awkward glances, for someone, anyone, to correct him. But no one did. My mother lifted her glass with pride. My father smiled so broadly, I thought his face might crack. Not a single glance in my direction. I could have set the tablecloth on fire, and they still wouldn't have noticed. It wasn't the joke that broke me. It was the ease with which they erased me, cleanly, publicly, without hesitation. Something inside me, something quiet, something tired, shifted. I placed my napkin down slowly, deliberately, and for the first time in a long time, I moved without second-guessing. The envelope burned against my chest. It was time. I stood before I even realized I was moving. 1 second, I was sitting there, staring into the hollow echo left by Liam's words. The next, I was on my feet, feeling the weight of every ignored birthday, every minimized achievement, every invisible moment stitching itself into the soles of my shoes. The room fell into a stunned hush. No clinking glasses, no polite chatter, just the quiet, curious tilt of heads as if some animal had wandered into their sacred hall and no one quite knew what to do. I reached into the inner pocket of my jacket and pulled out the envelope. It felt heavier now, denser, like it had soaked up the gravity of the moment. "I had something prepared," I said, my voice calm, level, terrifying in its steadiness. "Something I was going to give to the people who raised me." Murmurs rippled across the room, soft as shifting sand. My mother's face tightened, a small, involuntary twitch near her left eye. My father's hands curled into loose fists on the table. Liam just blinked, the gears behind his polished smile stuttering. "But," I continued, letting the word hang there like a gavel suspended mid-air, "it seems there's been a misunderstanding." I didn't rush. I didn't raise my voice. I simply turned, scanning the room until my gaze found them. Uncle Daniel and Aunt Rachel, tucked away at a side table near the windows, as if the seating chart had been designed to keep them out of the photographs. Their expressions were a tangled knot of confusion and dawning horror. Good, I thought. Let them see me. I walked across the room, past stunned cousins, slack-jawed acquaintances, and wide-eyed waiters, and stopped in front of their table. The envelope trembled just slightly in my hand, not from fear, from the sudden rush of oxygen filling my lungs for the first time in years. "This," I said, offering it to Uncle Daniel, "is for you." He hesitated. His hand hovered, uncertain, before he finally took it, like accepting a relic he didn't quite feel worthy to touch. No explanations, no speeches, just the simple, irrevocable act of handing it over. I turned back to my original table, to my parents, frozen in varying states of disbelief, and to Liam, who looked like someone had slapped him with a brick wrapped in velvet, and calmly resumed my seat. For a long moment, the room remained suspended in that unbearable stillness. No one knew what to do. No one moved. No one breathed. It was the kind of silence that felt earned, the kind you had to bleed for. My mother opened her mouth, closed it. My father's nostrils flared. Liam's face was a slow burn of confusion igniting into rage. But none of them spoke. Good. Let them sit in it. The rest of the dinner proceeded like a play where someone had yanked the script away mid-performance. No one knew their lines anymore. Plates were picked at mechanically. Glasses were filled and drained without taste. Across the room, Uncle Daniel sat stiffly, the envelope untouched on the table before him. Aunt Rachel kept darting glances between it and me, her fingers nervously folding the corner of her napkin again and again. I didn't offer them reassurance. This moment wasn't about smoothing things over. This moment was about truth. Because sometimes, the only way to heal a wound is to let it scar without apology. When dessert was served, tiny, delicate towers of meringue and cream that looked like they had been assembled by angels with tweezers, I stood up again. This time, there was no announcement, no speech. I simply placed my napkin on the table, adjusted my jacket, and left. No goodbyes, no backward glances. Let them sit with their untouched pastries and their hollow toasts. Let them wonder how a ghost had learned to walk through walls. I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't rage or punch the mirrored walls. I stood there, watching my reflection, feeling the strange, sharp clarity of finally stepping out of a role I was never meant to play. When the elevator doors dinged open, I walked out of the Rosewood Court Hotel into the cold bite of the night, and I breathed, really breathed. The kind that fills your chest to the brim until your ribs ache and your eyes sting, and you realize you've been suffocating for so long You forgot what air tasted like. I had been holding on to that envelope for months, saving, planning, hoping $50,000. A lifetime of trying to be enough distilled into a single act. I was going to give it to my parents, a gesture of peace, an olive branch folded in currency, and instead it had found its rightful home, not with the people who ignored me, not with the ones who edited me out of their family photo albums and dinner speeches, but with the two people who, quietly, without fanfare, had loved me anyway. Who saw me when it cost them nothing and gained them nothing, who never asked me to shine brighter or shrink smaller to fit their vision of a perfect family. I slipped my hands into my pockets and smiled, the first real one of the night. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was recognition. The quiet, searing kind that etches itself into your bones and says, "You were never crazy. You were never invisible. You were just standing in the wrong room." And tonight, I had finally walked out of it. It started with a text the next morning. "Mom, we need to talk. Immediately." I stared at it for a full minute, the way you stare at a hornet buzzing against a window, wondering whether it's better to open the window or burn the whole house down. I didn't reply. I let the phone buzz itself into silence. An hour later came the calls, one after another, relentless. Mum, Dad, Liam. Then the cousins I'd forgotten existed, the ones who hadn't sent a birthday message in years, each name lighting up my screen like flare guns in a night sky I no longer lived under. The voicemails started piling up too. First, my mother's voice, syrupy and tight. "You made your point, Ethan. Very funny. Now let's be adults and fix this." Then my father's, clipped and gruff. "Call me. We need to discuss the money." And finally Liam, his message less polished, raw, the golden sheen cracked. "Seriously, bro, 50 grand? You were just going to hand it over? To them? After everything Mum and Dad did for you? After everything they did for me?" I almost laughed. The kind of sharp, bitter laugh that leaves a taste like blood in your mouth. Instead, I powered off my phone and went for a walk. The world was still turning. The air still smelled like wet concrete and winter. The coffee shop on the corner still served overpriced lattes to under-caffeinated lawyers. It was almost disappointing in a way. How normal everything was after you dismantle a dynasty, even a small, petty one like mine. By noon, the campaign escalated. Liam posted a photo on Instagram, an old family vacation shot. Us at the beach, all fake smiles and sunburned noses. The caption read, "Family means everything. Some people forget that." Grateful #blessed #family first. The comments were a predictable flood of sympathy and sanctimony. "Praying for your family, Liam. Stay strong. Some people don't know how good they had it. Blood is thicker than water. Blood is thicker than water." Funny how nobody ever remembers the second part of that saying. But loyalty is thicker than blood. But quoting medieval proverbs at Instagram bots wasn't how I wanted to spend my day. I turned off notifications and made myself another cup of coffee. They weren't angry because I betrayed them. They were angry because I exposed them, because for once, their script, the one where I was the bitter, ungrateful ghost clinging to the edges of their golden narrative, had fallen apart. The real blow came 2 days later, Aunt Rachel called, her voice small and shaking. "Ethan," she said, "we got an email." My stomach dropped. "What kind of email?" There was a pause, the kind where you can hear someone folding into themselves across a phone line. "Anonymous," she said finally. "Screenshots. Old texts from you." I closed my eyes. I didn't need her to explain. I knew exactly what they had sent. Years ago, in the dark nights after family holidays where I'd been treated like a ghost in my own skin, I'd vented to friends. Little things. Throwaway frustrations. Texts like, "Sometimes I wish they'd just leave me alone. God, Uncle Daniel is smothering me with advice again. Aunt Rachel means well, but I just need space." Petty, human things. The kind of words you say because you think no one will weaponize them against you. But of course, in a family built on manipulation, everything was a weapon if you waited long enough. "I'm so sorry," I said, voice thick. I never meant, I know," Aunt Rachel interrupted softly. "I know who you are, Ethan. I know your heart." There was a long silence, the kind that vibrates in your bones. Finally, she added, "We're not sending the money back. Just so you know." I laughed, a small, broken thing. "That's not why I called. I know," she said again. But it needed to be said. The smear campaign spread like mold after a flood, whispers through the extended family, emails hinting that I was emotionally unstable, that I was manipulated by greedy relatives. Even a few Facebook posts, vague but cutting, about how sad it is when outside influences poison a family. They were building their new narrative, brick by slimy brick. And I didn't lift a single finger to stop them. Let them have their pity parties. Let them play the wounded saints. I had spent enough of my life trying to explain myself to people who only ever listened for ammunition. The final move was almost anticlimactic. A week later, they showed up at my apartment, uninvited, of course. Mum, in her best silk scarf and practiced sorrowful smile. Dad, hands stuffed into his pockets, radiating barely contained anger. Liam wasn't there, probably busy posting another inspirational quote about loyalty. They stood on my doorstep like missionaries selling guilt. "We'd like to come in," my mother said. "No," I answered simply. Her face faltered. Not used to being told no, at least not by me. "Ethan, please," my father said, voice low and gravelly. "Be reasonable." "Reasonable," I repeated, tasting the word. "Like forgetting your son exists while you toast to your only child?" They flinched. "Good. You blindsided us," Mum hissed, the mask slipping. "Humiliated us." "No," I said, calm as a winter lake. I just stopped pretending, Dad's fists clenched at his sides. "You think giving away $50,000 makes you a hero?" "No," I said. "It makes me free." I shut the door before they could answer, before they could twist my words into another weapon. And this time, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. The silence after they left wasn't empty. It was rich, heavy, the kind of silence that settles into your bones and tells you that you've just closed a door no one's allowed to pry open again. For days, I said nothing. I answered no calls, responded to no emails. I let the hurricane outside my walls rage itself into exhaustion. I stayed in my small apartment, a place that suddenly felt enormous, and let myself feel the stillness. At first, the doubt crept in at the edges. Had I gone too far? Was I cruel? Would there come a day when I'd regret severing the last thread tethering me to them? But the answer came, again and again, with the quiet certainty of breath. No, because sometimes survival means setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. And sometimes it means walking away while they accuse you of betrayal because they mistook your endurance for consent. I wasn't playing that part anymore. It didn't take long before Liam turned up the volume. He posted another essay online, dripping with weaponized nostalgia and Bible verses about forgiveness, making sure the right people saw it. Framing himself as the wounded brother, the abandoned son. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. Let him build his cathedral of half-truths and martyrdom. I wasn't attending the service. Aunt Rachel called one afternoon, her voice careful but warm. "They're trying to guilt us," she said. "Emails, letters, even a visit from your father." I closed my eyes, feeling a flicker of old guilt try to light itself inside me. "I am sorry," I said. "I didn't mean to drag you into this mess." "You didn't drag us anywhere, Ethan," she said firmly. "We chose to stand by you." There was a pause. "And we're not cashing that check unless you're absolutely sure," she added. I laughed, a real laugh this time. Not bitter, not broken, just tired and free. "I'm sure," I said, because it wasn't about the money. It was about seeing love returned, not extracted, about thanking the only people who saw me without needing me to shrink first. That winter, I spent Christmas at Uncle Daniel and Aunt Rachel's house. It wasn't fancy. No grand dinners or choreographed toasts. Just 3 people in sweaters, drinking too much cocoa, arguing over board games. They didn't make speeches, they didn't post photos for validation, they just lived with me, beside me, as if I had always been meant to be there. At one point, while we were sitting on the porch wrapped in too many blankets, Aunt Rachel turned to me. "You know," she said, brushing a snowflake off her hair, "you've always belonged here, even before you knew it." I swallowed hard. It hit me then. How many years I had spent waiting for a family that was never coming. How I had twisted myself into silence, into servitude, into invisibility, all for a version of love that had no intention of ever seeing me. But here, with them, I didn't have to earn my place. It was simply mine. Weeks passed. The calls from my parents grew fewer. The posts from Liam grew shriller, then quieter. Eventually, even the background noise faded, like a radio losing signal at the edge of the world. I wrote a letter, short, factual, final. "Dear Mum and Dad, please do not contact me again. Please respect my decision to step away from this family dynamic. I wish you peace, but I am choosing a life without these cycles. There will be no future attempts at reconciliation. This is not anger. This is closure. Goodbye." I mailed it with a strange kind of reverence, like laying flowers on a grave. There was no response, not immediately. Then, a week later, a voicemail from my mother. It started tearful, cracked halfway through into rage. "You've broken this family. You'll regret it someday." I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted it without hesitation. Because here's the thing no one tells you about walking away from toxic people. The peace isn't immediate. It's earned, breath by breath, day by day. You learn to live without the constant ache of being unseen. You learn that love given freely, without conditions, without performance, tastes different, sweeter, real. You stop waiting for apologies that will never come. You stop bleeding yourself dry for people who are thirsty for control, not connection. You stop mistaking suffering for loyalty. Sometimes I think about that night at the Rosewood Court Hotel, about Liam's smug face, about my parents raising their glasses without a flicker of hesitation. And for a heartbeat, I feel that old aches stir like a ghost tapping at the edges of memory, but then I breathe, and the ghost fades, because I didn't just walk away from them that night. I walked toward myself, toward Uncle Daniel's terrible pancake breakfasts, toward Aunt Rachel's hand squeezing mine when I get good news, toward a life where love is a given, not a gamble. Home, I realized, isn't always where you started. Sometimes it's where you're finally seen. I sit on my porch now, the late winter sun curling against my skin, and I smile. Not because the story ended perfectly, but because for the first time, it's mine, all of it, and no one can take that away. Not anymore. Story 2. The blizzard outside slammed against my little rented duplex. like it was trying to knock the whole place over. December 20th, 5 days to Christmas. The heater barely kept the cold at bay, and my boots left a trail of muddy slush across the floor. I dropped into a chair at the kitchen table, cradling a half-flat beer, still covered in grease from wrestling a seized brake line on my pickup after a 15-hour haul through whiteout conditions. My kids, Ellie 9 and Max 7, were sprawled out on the living room floor, giggling while making lopsided ornaments for the pathetic $20 tree I'd bargained for at the gas station. The buzz of my phone cut through the quiet. "Mum," I sighed, already knowing what it was. Another favour, another urgent need. I'd shelled out almost $22,000 this year alone to keep them afloat, groceries, mortgage, Dad's truck, my sister Lindsay's business disasters. "Hey, Mum," I answered, putting her on speaker so I could keep folding bills. Her voice was clipped, cold. "Chris, you and the kids won't be at Christmas dinner." I blinked. "What?" "Lindsay's hosting. She's keeping it intimate. You understand." Ellie dropped her roll of tape. Max's eyes darted to me, confused. I could barely keep my voice steady. "You're disinviting us?" "Lindsay's boys need calm." "Your kids? Well, they're a little too wild. You'll manage. We'll catch up after." The words hit harder than any ice storm. I stared at the dented beer can in my hand, then slammed it down, foam splashing over the pile of past due bills. "You're serious? After everything?" I could feel the blood rushing to my face. "I covered your mortgage, your truck, your groceries, paid for Lindsay's flop of a flower shop." Mum sighed, that long, dismissive sigh she used when I was a kid, the one that meant stop embarrassing yourself. "Don't make this a big deal, Chris. One night." Lindsay's had a rough year. Ellie clutched Max's arm. His little fingers shredded a paper snowflake. My heart cracked. "They're kids, Mum. Mine aren't broken toys to toss aside because they don't fit your perfect holiday picture." She exhaled sharply. "You always offered to help, Chris. Don't act like a martyr now." "Offered. Like I volunteered out of pure joy to watch my overtime vanish while my kids wore hand-me-downs." My teeth ground together. "Merry Christmas," she said, final and cold. The line went dead. Max sniffled. "Did we do something wrong, Dad?" I dropped to my knees, pulling both kids close. "No, bud. You two are perfect. They're the broken ones." Inside, though, I was already on fire, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. I popped open my old laptop, fingers shaking with rage. Mortgage. My name was tied to it. Truck loan. Same deal. Years ago, Mum and Dad needed help after Lindsay's dream business exploded into a mountain of debt. I'd been their crutch ever since. I scrolled to the autopays, mortgage, truck loan, utilities, random cash transfers. Every month, thousands gone, scraped together from my trucking jobs and weekend mechanic gigs. My thumb hovered over cancel autopay. Click truck loan, click. Utilities, cancelled. Merry Christmas, Mum and Dad. Christmas Eve rolled in under a sky thick with falling snow. The duplex was freezing, but it felt warm in a way I hadn't felt in years. Ellie and Max decorated the crooked tree with magazine clippings. We made cookies from a $1 box of mix. They laughed when the gingerbread men looked like melted trolls. And for once, I wasn't distracted by my phone buzzing for help. I was helping us. At a local dive, my buddy Jake slid into the booth across from me, scarfing down fries. "Dude," he said, "you look lighter." "Kicked out of Christmas," the first said, sipping bitter coffee. "Cancelled everything I paid for. Mortgage, truck, the works." He choked on a fry. "Cold, man. I like it." I shrugged. They made their choice. I made mine. Jake lifted his beer in a mock salute. "To cold, hard lessons. I clinked my coffee mug against his. Christmas morning, the storm outside howled like a thing alive. Ellie and Max tore into their thrift store presents like they were the best gifts in the world, a cracked Lego set and a one-eyed teddy bear. "Best Christmas ever," Ellie squealed. The warmth of that moment wrapped around me tighter than any furnace. Then my phone started buzzing. "Mom, Chris, the heat's acting weird. Can you check it?" "Dad, truck's not starting. Come fix it." "Lindsay, the house is freezing. My boys are sick." I set the phone down and spooned mashed potatoes onto Max's plate. They'd figure it out, the way I had to. By noon, my phone was a war zone. 30 texts, a dozen voicemails, most from Mum. "Chris, the furnace won't kick on. It's dropping to 50 degrees. Chris, please. The boys are crying. Chris, you're heartless. Heartless." That one made me laugh out loud. Max, hearing me, peeked over from his fort of pillows. "You okay, Dad?" "Better than ever, buddy. We spent the day baking misshapen cookies and playing Go Fish." Meanwhile, Mum's house turned into an icebox. By nightfall, they were full on panicking. Dad's messages got angrier. "You think this is funny? You're killing us. Get your ass over here and fix it now." Every time my phone buzzed, it just made the room feel a little warmer. I'd spent years giving them everything while Lindsay screwed up again and again without consequence. Not anymore. "Jake called around 9 p.m, dude. Did you hear?" he said between laughing fits. "Your mum's been calling the neighbours asking for space heaters." I grinned. "Maybe she can borrow some of that calm Lindsay's kids needed so bad." Jake practically howled. "You're a legend, Chris. Seriously." I hung up and watched Max and Ellie fall asleep on the couch, the twinkly lights from our little tree flickering over their faces. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. The next morning, December 26th, the storm had gotten even worse. The snowdrifts were up to my waist. I shoveled out a tiny path just so Ellie and Max could play in the backyard. My phone buzzed non-stop. "Mom, it's 40 degrees inside. Lindsay's boys are coughing. Please, Chris. Dad, you're a selfish bastard. We're freezing. Lindsay, if something happens to my kids, it's on you." Meanwhile, our duplex was cozy. I'd snagged a second-hand heater from the local pawn shop for cheap last week, just in case. Planning ahead was something I'd learned the hard way. Around sunset, the doorbell rang. I peered out the window and saw Dad standing there, bundled up, looking angrier than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door just a crack. "Chris, for God's sake," he barked. "The heat's been out 2 days. The truck won't start. We need you." I leaned against the frame, crossing my arms. "Funny. You didn't seem to need me when you threw us out of Christmas." His face turned red under the porch light. "It was one night, I repeated flatly. "After years of paying your bills, after $22,000 stiz year alone." He dropped the tough act real quick. "Chris, Lindsay's kids, not my problem." I closed the door in his face, locking it with a solid click. Through the window, I watched him trudge back through the snow, shoulders hunched like a beaten dog. Inside, Ellie and Max were giggling over their half-frosted cookies. "Who was that, Dad?" Ellie asked. "Nobody we need to worry about," I said, ruffling her hair. "We had everything we needed right here." January rolled in cold and unforgiving. Snow still knee-deep, ice clinging to everything like bad memories. I was stacking firewood behind the duplex when Jake called, laughing so hard he could barely get words out. "Bro, you're not gonna believe this," he wheezed. "Lindsay's posting sad sob stories online. Our Christmas was ruined, please help." I chuckled. "Maybe someone will send them a free heater." Mum's house had dipped below 35 degrees. Pipes were freezing. The truck had already been towed. And Lindsay's boys were stuck sick in a clinic because nobody could afford to fix anything. Poetic. The messages kept coming, like clockwork. Mom, Chris, we're losing everything. Please. Dad, you're going to regret this. Lindsay, you ruined our lives. But I didn't feel bad. Not once. For years, I kept them afloat while they treated me like a backup plan, like my kids were second class. Now they were just reaping what they'd sown. A few days later, the real bomb dropped. Lindsay showed up at my door, no jacket, shivering, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "Chris," she croaked, voice cracking, "I need to tell you something." I folded my arms. "Go on." She swallowed hard. It wasn't me who lost the flower shop money. It was Mum and Dad. They forged my name on checks, used the shop to launder money for some shady loans. They promised me they'd make it right if I kept quiet. The truth hit like a hammer. I staggered back a step. "So all that time, you let me think it was you." She nodded, tears freezing on her cheeks. I was scared. They said they'd cut me off too. I looked past her, to Ellie and Max laughing inside. "You chose them." "I'm sorry, Chris. Not sorry enough." I closed the door. No more second chances. Not for any of them. The banks foreclosed on the house within a month. Dad's truck got repossessed. The loan shark started sniffing around. Mum tried guilt-tripping every relative she could find. Lindsay's kids ended up in free clinics. Meanwhile, I kept living. We roasted marshmallows in the backyard, went ice skating at the community rink, watched old cartoons bundled up on the couch. My world got smaller, but it got better. No more strings, no more expectations. Just me and my kids. Safe, warm, free. Story 3. Growing up, I always thought family was supposed to mean loyalty. I wasn't naive enough to believe it was perfect, far from it, but I believed deep down they'd at least appreciate me when it mattered. So when I pulled up to my parents' driveway that chilly Saturday morning, I was practically buzzing. I had spent the past year working double shifts, skipping vacations, and pinching pennies to make something incredible happen. A surprise dream trip to Europe for my mum and dad. First-class flights. A week at a 5-star hotel in Munich. Guided tours. The whole shebang. I even booked a spot for myself, not to intrude, but because I thought it would make it more special to experience it together. I killed the engine and stepped out, grinning ear to ear. They were already outside, bundled up against the cold, suitcases stacked neatly beside them. My mum, Michelle 56, looked like she was about to burst from excitement, practically bouncing on the balls of her feet. My dad, Richard 59, wore his usual proud smile, the kind he reserved for big life moments. But there was someone else standing with them. Someone I hadn't invited. It was my younger brother, Noah 26, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, gaming headphones hanging around his neck, smirking like he'd just won a prize. Confused, I shot my mum a look. What's he doing here?" "Oh," she said brightly, reaching out to squeeze Noah's shoulder. "We decided it would be better if Noah went instead of you. He really needs a break." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for someone, anyone, to laugh and say, "Gotcha." But no one did. Noah just grinned wider. "Yeah, man, you travel all the time for work." "I've been stressed lately, you know." Stressed? This was the same guy who hadn't worked a steady job since college. His biggest stressor was losing internet connection during a gaming session. I turned to my dad, hoping for some backup. He just shrugged. "It's all set, we're heading out." My jaw tightened. I felt my pulse in my ears. 1,000 words rushed up my throat, but I swallowed them all down. I wasn't going to beg for the gift I gave. "All right," I said, voice calm and even. "Let's get moving." The drive to the airport was unbearable. Noah chattered non-stop from the back seat about all the beer halls he was going to visit and how sweet the hotel spa was going to be. My mum giggled like he was 5 years old again, and my dad chimed in with occasional chuckles. I kept my eyes on the road. When we pulled up to the terminal, I popped the trunk. They piled out, laughing and chatting. My mum kissed my cheek. "We'll send you tons of pictures, honey. Love you." Noah slapped my back like we were best buds. "Thanks, bro. You're the man." My dad gave me a hearty pat on the shoulder. "Proud of you, son." I forced a smile. Not for them, for me. Because they had absolutely no idea what was about to happen. I watched them roll their luggage toward the automatic doors, Noah practically bouncing with excitement. As soon as they were out of earshot, I pulled out my phone, opened the airline app, and cancelled their flights. Gone. They were about to find out what happens when you treat someone like a wallet with legs. I didn't even leave the airport parking lot before the first text came through. "Mom, sweetheart, there's a problem with the tickets. The airline says they're cancelled." I smirked and tossed my phone onto the passenger seat. A few minutes later, another message. "Dad, call me. Now." I let it ring out. By the time I merged onto the highway, my phone lit up again, buzzing furiously. "Noah, dude, what the hell? Fix this man." I laughed. An honest, from the belly laugh I hadn't felt in years. Noah, my parents, they had finally made their choice. And so had I. I waited until I was almost home before I finally sent a message back. "Yeah, about that. Guess you'll have to enjoy your rare opportunity without a ride. Mom, this isn't funny. Fix it now. Dad, you're humiliating us. Noah, bro, you're being a jerk. Just buy new tickets. You have the money." That last one made my blood boil. As if the money I worked my arse off for was still theirs to spend. I blocked them all. The quiet that followed was the most beautiful thing I'd heard in my entire life. I cracked open a cold soda, dropped onto my couch, and flipped on the TV. Somewhere across town, 3 people who had taken me for granted my whole life were standing in a busy airport terminal, red-faced and furious, scrambling to fix a situation they thought I would magically solve for them. For the first time, I didn't. For the first time, I chose me. And I wasn't done yet. I woke up the next morning to the soft buzz of my phone, vibrating across the nightstand. For a second, I just stared at it, half tempted to let it buzz itself into silence. But curiosity won. I leaned over and checked. 17 missed calls, 14 texts, all from the same 3 people. I didn't even bother opening them. I could guess the contents: guilt trips, threats, desperate begging, maybe even some half-baked apologies if they were feeling creative. It was weird, really. I always thought standing up for myself would feel angry, explosive, but instead, I just felt done, calm, like I'd finally walked away from a burning building I should have left years ago. I sat up, stretched, and thumbed through the notifications. One text from my mum stood out. "Mom, you're blowing this way out of proportion. We're your family." There it was. The magic word. Family. Their favourite shield whenever they wanted to excuse treating me like crap. Family means forgiving. Family means forgetting. Family means sacrifice. But only if you're the one doing it. I tossed my phone aside and got ready for the day. No dramatic speeches. No big emotional moment. Just me, finally living like I mattered. But as I sipped my coffee, a new idea started forming in the back of my mind. A small, dangerous spark. They cared so much about appearances. They loved telling everyone about their amazing vacations. They loved bragging about their hard-earned successes. They wanted the credit, but they never paid the bill. And they sure as hell weren't about to post cute airport selfies now, not without a little context. I opened my laptop, logged onto Facebook. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a second, thinking through every word. Short, clean, brutal. My post, wishing my parents, Michelle and Richard, and my brother Noah, a safe journey. They decided at the last minute that Noah should take my spot on the Europe trip I paid for. Hope they enjoy the non-refundable tickets I gifted them. Click. Posted. It didn't take long. At first, a few likes, then a couple of confused comments. Then the floodgates opened. Cousin Tara, wait. They left you behind? Family friend Mark, hold up. You paid for everything and they replaced you? Old classmate Jenna, that's so beyond messed up. I'm furious for you. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about truth. About finally making it impossible for them to pretend everything was picture perfect. And best of all, some kind soul sent me a screenshot from my mum's Facebook. She had tried posting her usual brag, a picture of the three of them with the caption, "Off to Germany." So blessed for this amazing family trip. But now her comments were a war zone. Lisa, didn't you ditch your son at the airport? Uncle Dan, pretty rich calling it a family trip when you abandoned half the family. Friend of a friend, shameful behaviour. Embarrassing. I nearly spit out my coffee laughing. 5 minutes later, the post disappeared. Game, set, match. Later that afternoon, just when I was finally starting to relax, there was a knock at the door. I glanced through the peephole. Dad, alone. Of course. They always sent him to do the dirty work. The voice of reason, the fixer. I thought about not opening it. Just letting him stew out there, fuming quietly. But no, I wanted to see how this would go. I cracked open the door, keeping the chain latched. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low and tight. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Depends. Here to apologize, or just to yell," he sighed. Like he was the one burdened. Like I was putting him through something. "Look," he said, "we made a mistake. We didn't handle it well. But airing family business online? You crossed a line." I laughed, an actual full-bodied laugh that caught him off guard. "I crossed a line?" I repeated. "After you all decided my role in this family was cash provider and afterthought." His face twitched. The anger was there, bubbling under the surface, but he was trying hard to keep it civil. "We need you to fix this," he said finally, voice hardening. "Delete the post. Help us rebook. Make things right." I smiled coldly. "Make things right? You made your choice, Dad. So did I." I didn't shout, didn't argue, just closed the door, gently, right in his face. I locked it, turned off the porch light and walked back to my couch. They were on their own now. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel a single ounce of guilt. I didn't hear from my dad again after that night. Not right away, anyway. Instead, the silence stretched out, thick and heavy, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for me to crack first. Old me might have. Old me would have felt guilty. Maybe even apologized just to keep the peace. But not this time. Instead, I went about my life like nothing happened. Grocery shopping, hitting the gym, binge watching bad Netflix shows with no one blowing up my phone. It was peaceful. But peace never lasts long when you're dealing with people who think they own you. By the end of the second day, the texts started up again. Not from my parents this time, but from extended family. Cousins, aunts, even a few random family friends I barely spoke to. Half of them were horrified by what my parents pulled. The other half were trying to play middleman. Aunt Patty, they're really upset. Maybe just call and work it out. Cousin Leo, you know how your parents are. It's not worth burning bridges. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Burning bridges? They didn't just burn it. They'd bulldozed the damn thing and danced on the ashes. No way was I rebuilding it for them. Meanwhile, the best part? My Facebook post was still making waves. Turns out when you spend years pretending to be the perfect family while using your oldest kid as a free ATM, people notice when the mask slips. Word spread fast. A few distant relatives, ones I hadn't seen since I was a teenager, started reaching out too, quietly, carefully, like they didn't want to get caught siding with me. I always thought something seemed off with them. You deserved better, man. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. It hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I'd thought I was crazy. Like maybe I really was being too sensitive. Maybe I was just selfish or bitter or ungrateful, like my parents always whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. But no, other people saw it too. They just hadn't known how bad it really was. 3 days later, another knock on the door. This time, it wasn't my dad. It was Noah. I almost laughed when I saw him standing there, hoodie pulled up, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes darting around like he was scared someone might see him. I opened the door just a crack. What? He shuffled his feet. Can I come in? I thought about it. For about half a second. Nope, he frowned. Come on, man. Just 5 minutes. Please. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Talk fast. He glanced around again, like someone might jump out of the bushes. I didn't know they were going to cut you out like that, he said. I thought you were cool with it. I swear. I raised an eyebrow. Cool with funding a trip I didn't get to go on? He winced. Look, I didn't ask for it, all right? Mum and Dad just said it was going to be better this way. I didn't want to cause drama. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You didn't want to cause drama, I repeated. So you took my ticket, my hotel, my money, and thought what? I'd just wave from the driveway like a proud big brother. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Like he finally realized how stupid it sounded out loud. I didn't think it would blow up like this, he mumbled. Mum's been crying. Dad's pissed. They're talking about cancelling Christmas. That almost made me laugh harder. They're mad, I said, because for once they couldn't control the story. That's not my problem, Noah. It's theirs. He looked down at his sneakers. Can't you just... I dunno, delete the post. Say it was a misunderstanding. I stared at him for a long second. You're a grown-ass man, Noah. Not a kid. You're 26. You made your choice when you got on that plane. Own it. He flinched. Like the words physically hit him. I just don't want this to be forever, he said quietly. We're family. There it was again. Family. The magic word that was supposed to erase everything. I shook my head. You made your bed. Lay in it. Then, for good measure, I added, don't worry, I'm not cancelling Christmas. I just won't be showing up. And with that, I shut the door in his face. Gently, politely, but very, very firmly. That night, I got a final message from my mum. Mom, I hope you're happy. You ruined everything. We'll never forget this. I didn't reply, not because I didn't have words, but because for the first time I realised I didn't owe them any. Christmas came and went like a bad dream. No tree, no gifts, no fake smiles around a table pretending nothing happened. Just me, my apartment, a couple takeout containers. And honestly, it was the best holiday I'd had in years. No pretending, no performing, no sitting quietly while getting side-eyed for not being enough. Just peace. The texts slowed down after that. The calls, too. Like they finally realised I wasn't going to fold. At first it stung a little. Noah didn't even bother sending a Merry Christmas. My parents sent one guilt-soaked group text, hope you're happy. We missed you, but I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because, for once, I was picking me. New Year's rolled around, and with it, the usual flood of New Year, new me posts on social media. Normally, I'd scoff at that stuff, but this year felt different. This year, I wasn't promising to be better, thinner, richer, more agreeable. This year, my only resolution was simple: stop showing up for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. And you know what? It felt damn good. I started saying yes to small things: grabbing coffee with an old coworker, taking solo day trips, hitting the gym because I wanted to, not because someone made a comment about my weight. It wasn't some overnight movie montage transformation, no inspirational soundtrack, no magical makeover moment, just quiet, small, stubborn acts of choosing myself every single day. Sometime around February, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. We exchanged the usual awkward small talk, both pretending not to acknowledge the giant elephant standing between us. Finally, she leaned in, voice low like she was sharing a state secret. "I heard about everything," she said. "Just wanted you to know, a lot of us think you did the right thing." I blinked. It was such a simple thing to say. No drama, no judgment, just a small, steady hand reaching out across the silence. "Thanks," I said, and meant it. We smiled, the real kind, not the tight, brittle ones I used to paste on at family parties, and went our separate ways. Spring crept in slowly, thawing the last stubborn patches of winter. I found a new rhythm: work, gym, weekends spent hiking or grabbing beers with friends who didn't expect me to play therapist or human wallet. I even booked my own trip, a real vacation. Greece. Just me, a backpack, and a ticket with my name on it. Paid for with my money. Spent on my happiness. No guilt, no strings. The night before I left, I sat on my tiny balcony, sipping a cheap beer, scrolling through my phone. A new message had come through. It was from Noah. "Noah, Mum and Dad are still mad. They say it's not the same without you. I get it now, though. I'm sorry. For real." For a second, I just stared at the screen, waiting for the usual tightness to seize up in my chest, but it never came. I just felt calm, detached, like the past wasn't this heavy anchor tied to my ankles anymore. I thought about replying, something polite, distant. But in the end, I just locked my phone, set it face down, and watched the city lights blink quietly in the dark. Some goodbyes don't need words. Some chapters just close themselves. I boarded my flight the next morning, window seat, sunrise out the glass. As the plane took off, lifting higher and higher above the city, I felt it, for the first time in my life, the weight sliding off. The realization that family isn't who demands the most from you. It's who shows up, who stays, who sees you. And if that means building a whole new family out of friends, kindness, and the quiet stubbornness of believing you deserve better, then so be it. Some stories don't end with a dramatic confrontation. Some stories end with a man sitting quietly at 35,000 feet, smiling to himself, finally free. And honestly, that's the best revenge there is.